is what are your thoughts on civil unrest, the protests, and everything happening in your city, your country, and the world?
All right. My thoughts on the protests and civil unrest that's going on in our cities right now is I'm all for it, and I think it's great that racism is like getting a bigger spotlight now in our generation. I mean, it's always been around, but I'm glad to see that like the Black Lives Matter protests and all the protesting, and just really just making the situation and making the problems more aware, and not only that, but getting justice, like getting justice for the people who are affected by racism and police brutality. So yeah, protesting is great.
But I also think that the protests are really good because, as she said, like we're continuing to see a pattern, and I just feel like this was like the wake up call for it all. Like everybody's really starting to see what's going on, and they're realizing it's just something that it needs to stop.
My thoughts is I think overall it's great. I love seeing like people my age going out and protesting. Like Nico said, racism is like, it's been a big part forever. And I love, after the George Floyd situation, the Breonna Taylor situation, that, people are like giving a bigger push to end racism and stuff.
I think it's great. We're kind of giving like racism a voice now. We're fighting, we're having those hard conversations. We're fighting for what's right.
So I really just feel like it's really nice to see people coming together. I mean, I know that things like rioting they're not easy to see and they're not easy to hear about because nobody likes to see like violence, obviously. But it's good to see people becoming more like increasingly aware of the systems that were built and like the ways that like just taking like the police system, for example, it's just nice to see people becoming more and more aware about how our systems were built and the fact that they were built on the oppression of minorities, and just like coming from like a non-Black person of color who like obviously passes as white. Like it's interesting to also to see the way that our peers are reacting to it and seeing the ways that like my friends and other people's friends are reacting to and coming in support of it. So it's really nice to see.
I think that the amount of unrest and the protests that we have going on right now are all overdue actions and are all necessary. And I think that the way that our communities are responding to some of the issues that we have been faced with look the way that they do now because we are tired of years and years of the same story and the same tragedy. And I think that these protests and this unrest is finally going to be the spark to create the change that we have been waiting to see.
What role does your teacher or school play in what's happening? So where do you see your school and your teachers in this right now? What role do they play?
So I think that, of course, because teachers, I feel like, to me, they're like disconnected from reality, and like when I go into a classroom, I don't expect to be talking about like real world situations. I expect to like learn math, science, or whatever, right? But I feel like more teachers should at least educate or try to at least talk about, the racism and the hardships, like kids in class, people of color in their class, they should give like outlets or, places to help or just talk about racism in general.
I feel like if we had some history being taught mainly, like it could, how do I say this? It could like place a barrier between that hate, because it's like whatever they're being taught at home, they come to school and they learn history and everything like that. And then it could kind of change their perspective on these things that they think. And so I don't think school or our teachers play a role right now, but I think that they could.
So it'd be important for a teacher to not to teach a classroom, but also understand their students on a personal level and where they come from.
So they actually, in my opinion, play like a really important role because our teachers and our mentors in our school, like our school boards they hold such a high like position of power that they are our teachers. So as people who are meant to be listening to them and taking what they say in and really digesting that, like it's really important for our teachers and all of our role models in schooling really to be aware and for them to be educating themselves as well with all the right information, because what they say really does have a long-lasting impact on everybody who they come in contact with. So yeah.
The role that the school plays is more important for students who are not going to be directly challenged in this issue, and gives them a place of education that I think that is like really necessary, and it's way more than just what they have to teach us. Like this is I feel like in a sense like this is preparing people for the outside world more than we acknowledge it as a school, because whether we like it or not, given how things are kind of just shaped the way they are right now, students like us are gonna have to deal with this issue, regardless of what we are or are not taught by our parents or by our teachers or by any other staff member. But those who learn and instead of experience, the role that our school could play is really teaching them to learn to be an ally, be helpful to like the cause, and then most importantly be helpful to those students and who are affected, who aren't just allies but are actually experiencing issues, and overall that's going to create some more well-rounded students and a more well-rounded community that is more able to fight to make a difference.
Do you want to hear from your teachers or principals about the issues of race, police, and justice?
I think just because of everything that is going on, we should hear from them and their opinions and their beliefs, whether we agree with them or not, because I mean, we don't all need to have the same beliefs and agreements, but I do think that we should be able to hear what they have to say to like know, how do I say this? Like if we relate with them or not.
Yeah, I want to have these conversations because it's like we need to have these hard conversations about stuff to fix things. So it's like we've been pushing it to the side, or like some teachers will be like in a history class and we'll be start to talk about race, but then they'll be like, no, let's not go too deep into it, but we need to go deep into it because it's like that's how we're gonna fix problems.
I think like racism needs to be a bigger part of schools. Like we talk, we have assemblies about like, the harms of vaping, like suicide and stuff like that. I think we should have like assemblies about racism and teach the whole school about it. I feel like racism should be a bigger topic that should be taught in school so we can educate, the youth and stuff.
Yeah, my take on definitely teachers and principals should talk more about racism and police brutality and just overall everything that's happening right now, because I feel like it'd make more students interested in school in a way, and it'd make them feel more welcome to know that the problems that some of them face in their own personal life, they can talk about it with their teachers and their advisors, and they can get advice. And not only that, it's important because like racism and all the protesting that's going on, if we talk about it, learn about it, it's something that a lot of kids are passionate about, so they'll take it in more and they'll enjoy school more in a way. So not only are we getting awareness on racism, we're also involving students more and making them enjoy school more by talking about it.
I think it should be talked about in schools, and I think teachers can help to like educate people that don't understand, and help to like form better connections between not only the teachers and the students, but the students and the students. And it should be like a big topic that should be talked about in school.
Yeah, I think that it's really important. I would like to have heard from my teachers how they feel, what they think, because I would like to feel like my teachers take the time to understand me and understand the things that affect me, as well as every other student, not just me specifically, but like that they get us, or they care about what we go through. And I think that's really important, because I think I heard it a lot that this is political, and so they can't speak about it. But I don't think that there's anything political about it. I think it's just supporting your students and what they're faced with, and I would like to see that kind of deflecting go away, and them instead just show us that they care.
Yeah, of course, I really want to see more discussion about it, even if it's an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people to have. I don't think it should be uncomfortable, but because it feels like something people are uncomfortable to talk about it, we should be talking about it more, because bringing light to these subjects is really what we need, and we need more like really solid information to be like, we just really need to talk about all of this more, because the more that we push it away, the more it's going to come back in the future. And seeing the right people talk the right way about these issues, it would save a lot of people's lives. It would bring a lot more light to these subjects, and it would prevent from a lot of the violence happening now to happen in the future. So.
All right, last one. What do your friends and peers want or need to hear from your teachers about racial tensions and protests?
I think one thing we need to hear I think one thing teachers should do and understand is that even though say if it was a white teacher, even though I'm a minority, I'm not asking for handouts, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, all because I'm not white doesn't mean you have to suck up to me and not give me more homework than the white kid or whatever. No, teachers should understand it should be like an equal treatment of all students regardless of their skin color. But even though it's equal treatment, also understand that skin color is still a problem to some people, and that goes to racism. So for the teachers, they should understand the skin color of their student and the troubles that comes with it, but also not treat them any different than treat them any different than how they would treat a white kid.
I think it should be like, I feel like teachers should talk about it, because I've had a few arguments like trying to convince people, about like racism and the problem. And it's always like, oh, about like, what about the right? And I feel like teachers should talk about that, teach those people who don't see the bigger picture and only focus on like the right and stuff, and teach them that it's more than that. They're fighting for racism. It's not some small thing. That's what I think.
I think that it needs to be known that we can, or they can have somewhere to go to if they need to talk about being discriminated against, or in school too, like if it happens in school. I think they need to know that they can do that, and it won't be shut down or anything like that, and it's that school is a safe place for them to be able to talk.
I would just say, like, be there for your students, and just like, I would say also just like call it out if you see it. Like if you see like a coworker or something being like racist towards students, like don't be afraid to call it out. Don't be afraid to call it out.
That in this place, they are safe. They won't be like given bias, and that they're whatever they're feeling, that they're valid, and that this is a place for combating ignorance and creating empathy, which I think is like a really powerful thing to tell a student and let them know. Combating ignorance and creating empathy, which I think is like a really powerful thing to tell a student and let them know.
This is a big one. So I feel like I want my teachers to talk more about the sides of like not what's being televised or what's being really intensely talked about on mass media, because a lot of the times there are things you see on alternate outlets like social media or anywhere else. There, you'll see different sides of the story, and I really think that we need to talk about more than just what's being like mass broadcasted, because it's really important to see every single side of this story, because this is one of like the biggest, in my opinion, like the biggest movements that I've lived through, and seeing my teachers talk about reasons why, like rioting. I know that it's really hard to see riots and that kind of violence in the world, but seeing why groups of people who have been oppressed and shut out by almost every system that has been built against them, seeing those systems come down is really important. And if people have to riot in order to get that seen and get that heard and get the message out, I know it's hard to hear and hard to see, but it's important to notice that, because it's how the systems are going to be dismantled and how they're going to be rebuilt in a more just way. So dismantled and how they're going to be rebuilt in a more just way. So